Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 8, text 19. Maya Javanika Achana Agya Udhoksajam Abhyayam Na Lakshase Mudhadrisha Nataha Natyadharaha Yaha. Maya Javanika Achana Abhyaghoksajam Abhyayam Nalakshase Mudhadrisha Natho Natyadharo Jatha. Maya Javanika Achanam Agyaroksajam Abhyayam Nalakshase Mudhadrisha Natho Natyadharo Jatha. Maya Javanika Achanam Agyaroksajam Abhyayam Nalakshase Mudhadrisha Natho Natyadharo Jatha. Maya Javanika Achanam Agyaroksajam Abhyayam Nalakshase Mudhadrisha Natho Natyadharo Jatha. Maya Javanika Achanam Agyaroksajam Abhyayam Nalakshase Mudhadrisha Natyadharo Jatha. Maya Javanika Achanam Agyaroksajam Abhyayam Nalakshase Mudhadrisha Natho Natyadharo Jatha. Ladies? Maya Javanika Achanam Agyaroksajam Abhyayam Nalakshase Mudhadrisha Natho Natyadharo Jatha. Maya Javanika Achanam Agyaroksajam Abhyayam Nalakshate Mudhadrisha Natho Natyadharo. Word meanings. Maya, deluding. Javanika, Nika, curtain. Achanam, covered by. Agya, ignorant. Adhoksajam, beyond the range of material conception. Abhyayam, irreproachable. Not. Lakshase, observed. Mudhadrisha, by the foolish observer. Nataha, artist. Natyadharaha, dressed as a player. Yatha, as. Translation. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So I just want to put a question in your head, and we'll discuss the question after I read the purport. It says here, you are covered covered by the curtain of deluding energy. So, is that Mahamaya or Yogamaya? That's my question. You think about that. And then we'll read the purport. Who's Krishna? What's Krishna? What energy is he covered by? Mahamaya or Yogamaya? It's an interesting question. Anyway, we'll discuss. And I also wanted to mention an interesting word here is mudha drisha. You may remember many years ago, a devotee named Krishna Prema did a slideshow of the deities with music, and he called it Krishna Vision. You remember that? Krishna Vision. You could say Krishna Darshan. Krishna Drisha. Mudha Drisha means ass vision, basically. You're seeing through the... Well, Mudha means full, it also means ass, so it means full vision or ass vision, as opposed to Shastra Chakshu or something similar. Mudha Drisha, the vision of a Mudha. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna affirms that less intelligent persons mistake him to be an ordinary man like us, and thus they deride him. The same is confirmed herein by Queen Kunti. The less intelligent persons are those who rebel against the authority of the Lord. Such persons are known as asuras. The asuras cannot recognize the Lord's authority. When the Lord himself appears amongst us as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, or in his original form as Krishna, he performs many wonderful acts which are humanly impossible. As we shall find in the 10th canto of this great literature, Lord Sri Krishna established his humanly impossible activities even from the days of his lying on the lap of his mother. As we shall find in the 10th canto of this great literature, Lord Sri Krishna exhibited his humanly impossible activities even from the days of his lying on the lap of his mother. He killed a Putana witch, although she smeared her breast with poison, just to kill the Lord. The Lord sucked her breast like a natural baby, and he sucked out her very life also. Similarly, he lifted the Govardhan hill. Just as a boy picks up a frog's umbrella, who knows what a frog's umbrella is? A mushroom. Mushroom, or if a frog lifted an umbrella, it would be kind of small. I Googled it because, sometimes you read these things in Prabhupada's books and you just pass them by and don't think about it. And I Googled frog's umbrella and I got many pictures of frogs that are umbrella stands. So its mouth is open and you put your umbrella in it. And a mushroom could be a frog's umbrella. Yeah, mushrooms are pretty light. Okay, we'll go with mushroom. Krishna lifted Govardhan hill just like a little boy could lift a mushroom. and stood several days continuously just to give protection to the residents of Vrindavan. These are some of the superhuman activities of the Lord described in the authoritative Vedic literatures like the Puranas, Itihasas, histories, and Upanishads. He has delivered wonderful instructions in the shape of Bhagavad Gita. He has shown marvelous capacities as a hero, as a householder, as a teacher, and as a renouncer. He is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such authoritative personalities as Vyasa, Devala, Asita, Narada, Madhva, Shankara, Ramanuja, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and all other authorities of the line. He himself has declared as much in many places of the authentic literatures. And yet there is a class of men with demoniac mentality who are always reluctant to accept the Lord as the supreme absolute truth. This is partially due to their poor fund of knowledge and partially due to their stubborn obstinacy, which results from various misdeeds in the past and present. One time, in 1975, Prabhupada was in San Francisco, Rath Yatra, and I think the evening before Rath Yatra he met some scientist. I think it might have been an Indian. And the scientist couldn't understand what Prabhupada was saying. I think Prabhupada was repeating, couldn't understand. Arguing, couldn't understand. And Prabhupada finally told him, he said, "You know why you can't understand? You can't understand because you're a demon." And when Prabhupada said that, he was just laughing. And then Prabhupada said, and he accepted. Anyway, must have been a pious man. But Prabhupada's saying the same thing. Why can't you understand Krishna's God? You don't have IQ to understand? No, you're just a demon. Anyway, I have something we're going to read. You're in Asura. You've done so many sinful activities. It's like, now you don't have the capacity to understand. This is partially due to their poor fund of knowledge and partially due to their stubborn obstinacy, which results from various misdeeds in the past and present. Such persons could not recognize Lord Sri Krishna, even when he was present before them. Another difficulty is that those who depend more on their imperfect senses cannot realize him as the Supreme Lord. Such persons are like the modern scientist. Okay, I have to tell a story. Excuse me for interrupting, but this is such a good story. So, Parisari was reading a purport, and the purport had absolutely nothing to do with the verse. And the purport was all about the scientists, and Prabhupada was just laying into the scientists, like he's laying into them here. Poor fund of knowledge, frog in the well, cheating people, they think they know, they don't, etc. Parisari said, Prabhupada, a purport like it's supposed to be for another verse, and he said, well, read the purport to him, and he read it. And Prabhupada said, no, he said, I just couldn't resist taking every opportunity to smash the scientists. He said, it's not supposed to be the purport to this verse. He said, you could take it out, but I couldn't resist. Like if you don't like somebody and you can like play a trick on them, or, you just could torture them in some way or get back at them. It's like, one time Prabhupada met a professor. He was a Hindu professor, and he said, so you can tell me what is Hinduism? And the professor said, oh, that is a very difficult thing to say. What is Hinduism? And Prabhupada turned to Sri Damodar Maharaj, who was in the room, he said he's a professor of Hinduism, and he's saying he doesn't know what is Hinduism. What does that make him? And Sri Damodar says, cheater, Prabhupada. Makes him a cheater. Maybe Sesha Prabhu, maybe you were there. It was in Philadelphia. Yeah. Vaikuntha Prabhu was there, and he actually has a recording that he gave me of this. So Prabhupada was very, very upset about the fact that people who don't know anything speak like they know something. I had a professor, you won't believe the story, but it's true. He, on the first day, well, since I tell you and it's Berkeley in 1969, then you'll believe me that it's true. First day of class, philosophy 101, he said, I don't know anything, so there's no need to come to my class. Maybe the only realized professor in the whole university. And Prabhupada would appreciate that. You know, if you don't know something, at least admit it. So that's why Prabhupada was, you know. And then, as many of you know, when I was there, and Prabhupada in LA said, greatest enemies of human civilization. Why enemies? Because they're professing to know something, but they don't know it. If you don't know it, at least say you don't know it, then you're not an enemy. Anyway. So Prabhupada goes on to describe them. They want to know everything by their experimental knowledge. But it is not possible to know the Supreme Person by imperfect experimental knowledge. He is described herein as adhoksaja, or beyond the range of experimental knowledge. Adhoksaja literally means like you're trying to go up, but you can't. You can't ascend to something transcendental. You're pushed down by your limitation. All our senses are imperfect. We claim to observe everything and anything, but we must admit that we can observe things under certain material conditions only, which are also beyond our control. The Lord is beyond the observation of sense perception. Queen Kunti accepts this deficiency of the conditioned soul, especially of the women class who are less intelligent. For less intelligent men, there must be such things as temples, mosques, or churches, so they may begin to recognize the authority of the Lord and hear about Him from authorities in such holy places. For less intelligent men, this beginning of spiritual life is essential, and only foolish men decry the establishment of such places of worship, which are required to raise the standard of spiritual attributes for the mass of people. For less intelligent persons, bowing down before the authority of the Lord, as generally done in the temples, mosques, or churches, is as beneficial as it is for the advanced devotees to meditate upon Him by active service. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jnanatimam tasya gyanam jana shalakaya chakshurum militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. What time are we supposed to end class? I think it's time for questions. It's 8:30 or so. What time? What's the... I posed a question at the beginning. Okay, I posed a question at the beginning. So we'll begin class with the question. The question was, this verse says, covered, Maya Javanika Achanam, covered by the curtain of Maya. Maya Javanika, the curtain, Achanam, covered. What Maya is Krishna covered by? He's talking about us. So what Maya are we covered by that we can't understand Krishna? Because this verse is like, you see Krishna and you don't know who He is. Okay, raise your hand if it's Mahamaya.
Which one?
It's covering me.
No. It's covering, as the verse says, it's covering, okay.
Can I ask you a question?
I have to say this in a way to confuse you, so I can get the right answer. This verse says, Krishna is covered, so we can't see Him, right? We can't see Him as He is. We see Him, but we don't understand. What is Krishna covered by? What is that Maya that He's covered by? Okay, let's take a vote. Mahamaya? Or Yogamaya?
I have a question on that question.
He wants to say both. And okay, question on that question.
Vasudev.
We have to keep you in suspense.
Vasudev and Devaki, Mother Devaki had Yogamaya on her lap.
Yes.
Then Kamsa grabbed the leg and it became Mahamaya. What caused the Yogamaya become Mahamaya and was Yogamaya before? That answers maybe.
Answer the question. It depends on the job description at that moment. Well, it's interesting. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samambita. You cannot understand me because I'm covered by my internal potency. So don't get depressed if you voted for Mahamaya, because Prangovinda wants me to answer both ways. And it's true. It's just, and I think you were also saying, depends what angle of vision you're at, who you are, what you're looking at. When the Hollywood stars go out, they wear big sunglasses so no one will notice them, right? Krishna does not want to be noticed by people who don't deserve to notice him. So he covers himself, Mahamaya. Now, Prangovinda, I read this morning, Yogamaya. When I was studying this, I had a question. This was my question, because Krishna says, I'm covered by Yogamaya in 14th chapter. And whenever I read that, I thought, misprint, it's not Yogamaya, it's Mahamaya. No, it's Yogamaya. He covers himself by Yogamaya. For the residents of Vrindavan, he's covered by Yogamaya. We know that, so they don't understand who he is. Sometimes he's covered by Yogamaya, and he doesn't understand who he is. Because sometimes the question is, well, Krishna's crying, Yasoda's running, he's fearful. Is he just playing, or is he actually feeling this way? And the answer is, sometimes he's playing and sometimes he feels this way. When the time is right, Yogamaya comes and he forgets everything, and it's just Mother Yasoda and him, and he's afraid of her because she has a stick and she's never seen him with a stick before. It's like, what's going on? She's got a stick. And he's actually afraid. So Yogamaya every day makes the plan for the day. And Krishna also she knows what he wants. So if he wants to forget, even he forgets. Because it helps in the Leela. So even Krishna forgets. The devotees forget. And also the devotees here, they can't understand Krishna because he's also covered by Yogamaya. And I was thinking this morning, what about the residents of Vrindavan, Vaikuntha? Because they can see Krishna as he is, so in theory, they would not be covered by Yogamaya, right? In theory, because they see Vishnu as he is. They're the only ones who actually see him as he is, as God. In your purified state in Braj Leela, you don't see him as God. You only see him in Vaikuntha. So I thought, is it true? And I found out, Prabhupada said, in Vaikuntha, Yogamaya does not act because they see Krishna as he is. Interesting. Isn't it? You don't agree? Or you're thinking?
I got lost.
Yeah. Because Yogamaya covers Krishna, and this verse, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya, says he's covered by his internal potency, so we can't see him as God for us. He's covered by his internal potency for the liberated soul, they can't see him. And I thought, but in Vaikuntha, they can't see him as Vishnu, so there must be no Yogamaya in Vaikuntha. That was my theory, and I went to the database, and Prabhupada said, Yogamaya does not act in Vaikuntha because they see him as Vishnu.
Can Yogamaya cover Vishnu?
But there's no point.
No, can she cover? Because we see Balaram was covered for a year. He did not know that Krishna expended all these boys. So Balaram was covered by who?
But what was your question? Can Yogamaya cover the residents of Vaikuntha?
No, Vishnu himself, the God. Balaram is God.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But he was covered by Yogamaya also of Krishna.
Yeah, of course. But apparently the only ones who don't get covered are the residents of Vaikuntha. Everyone else gets covered. That's my theory. I have the purport to back it up. That was my theory in my head. The purport backs it up. Now, it seems logical to say I can't understand Krishna because I'm in Maya, Mahamaya, right? What's our philosophy? Covered by passion and ignorance, even covered by goodness, well, less goodness, but covered by passion and ignorance, you can't understand Krishna. So it's true. So it depends, like Prangovinda said, well, it's both. It depends how you're looking at it. Maya, the modes of nature cover us, so that we get everything wrong, including Krishna. So that's one way of looking at it. And the other way is Krishna's protecting himself by Yoga Maya. It says in the 7th chapter, you can't understand me because I'm covered. So there's illusion. So we're getting illusion in a couple ways. And Prabhupada lectured on this verse. He said something interesting. He said, this verse shows there's 2 strikes against you in trying to understand Krishna. 1, you're covered by Maya, and 2, Agya, Muta, you're an ass and you're stupid. So, being covered by Maya is bad enough, but you're also a fool. So Prabhupada's saying, 2 strikes against you. You're ignorant and you're covered. And this is why we can't understand Krishna. And then as we see in this purport, Prabhupada is talking about how people can understand Krishna, taking a few shots at the scientists. So we know that it's good in the liberated stage of pure bhakti to not understand Krishna, because that would ruin everything. Right? Yes?
I have a question about Yoga Maya. So,
One thing. So much more, I don't know.
So, trying to repeating, I'll understand if I understood. So, in Vaikuntha, they're not covered by Yoga Maya or Mahamaya. Okay, so they're not covered. In the material world, we're covered by Mahamaya. Spiritual world, they're covered by Yoga Maya. Now, in the spiritual world, they're always covered with Yoga Maya. Is there any time that they're not covered by Yoga Maya?
Yeah. Occasionally. Like
And-
when Yasoda saw the universe in Krishna's mouth.
So those occasional times when they're not covered by Yoga Maya in the spiritual world, in Goloka or in Gokula, there are times when the Brajabasis are not covered by Yoga Maya, so they are like Vaikuntha Vasis, so to speak.
But for example, I'll tell you a couple of stories, interesting. There's one example I was giving, when Krishna's doing his Leela and he needs to forget that he's God, and Yoga Maya knows that he wants to forget and he forgets him. So one time, Krishna was crying because Yasoda was, and there was this big pond in front of Krishna from his tears, and Yoga Maya thought, oh no, Yasoda's going to know that he's God because no ordinary child can grow tears like him. So immediately she got, she was like taking a nap and woke up or something. This is a problem, and then she removed the pond. And the other nice story, we all know the story of Krishna eating dirt and then Yasoda seeing. But not only did she see the universe in his mouth, she said, I was thinking, I'm his mother and Nanda's my father and this and that. And then Yoga Maya, it's a joke, but like Yoga Maya was, off duty for a while and she realized what happened and came back. And so in the story, it's like everything went back to normal. But also what the acharyas explain is, you might think, okay, it went back to normal, but she must remember what had happened, this happened, was I dreaming? The Yoga Maya completely wiped out the memory. She had no remembrance that ever happened, because if she did, that would destroy the Leela. So Yoga Maya would only, I joke that she was napping, and Yoga Maya her whole point is to enhance the Leela. So if she allows them for a moment to see Krishna and then forget, it's only to enhance the Leela.
So it must be just for a split of a second,
Yeah.
that when even like the gopis, when they're singing the Gopi Geet, it seems like they're saying that he's God. So although that seems more than a split of a second, but seems like they're aware.
If you look at that Leela, one way you could look at it is that Yogamaya is doing that to establish the supremacy of Krishna for us, or for those who would doubt. Like, okay, she saw the universe. Okay, that little boy is God. Because, people say, no, Braj Krishna is not the supreme and so forth. So that's one way of looking at it. It's just, the gopis are saying this but from their perception, it's different. So that's, like Arjuna said, show the universal form so we can all see it. He didn't need to see it. So that's one way of looking at it. And I'm sure there may be other ways that I'm not aware of. But general principle is Yogamaya is only making things better. And even if it appears she's making it worse, she's making it better. But we also have to understand when Krishna is doing these leelas, it's not just that he's doing these leelas within that realm of rasa with those devotees. It's also going to be in the Bhagavatam, and we're going to be looking at it, and we're going to be learning from it and understanding it. So obviously he's considering us as well. So that's why, you could see that as beneficial for the doubters who might minimize Krishna's position. Oh, she saw the universe. Or the gopis, they don't know he's God, but they somehow or other said he was. And what were they thinking when they said that? That he wasn't. Yes, okay.
I have this sloka, I just put it up, that Jaddapi Ishwartami Paramasatanta. So in Vaikuntha, as far Vishnu or Krishna as the supreme God, they are not under Yogamaya in that sense. They are not influenced by Yogamaya. But they are actually covered also by Yogamaya, because they don't know that God becomes subordinate to the love and affection. This is Prabhupada's translation.
But is that Yogamaya? Is Yogamaya doing that?
Yes. They don't know. That's why Jayadvaita Maharaj gave class one time, I remember. He said, when the question was raised by somebody here many years back, he said that is it possible in Vaikuntha they know something about Krishna's nobody knows him as a god? Say yes. Actually he asked to Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's god brother, and he said that in Vaikuntha sometimes they have a painting of Gopal.
Painting?
Of Gopal, cowherd boys, in the closet. So when Gopkumar went, he said, oh, that's Gopal. Said, shh. Nobody think God is not like a subject of like a cowherd. He's worshipable object. How did you get in? So they're they put it in a closet. They have some idea, but they do not want to accept. Whatever it is.
I also once read, sometimes it's interesting. If you study something in depth, that you find all the contradictions. And
It's sweet. It's very sweet.
Well, Prabhupada also said they could go to Braj from Vaikuntha, but normally you hear that, no, it's your rasa, why would you want to go? But so, there's also the possibilities of things that never happen, because theoretically it's possible by tattva, but in rasa it may never happen. Anyway, we'll do a little more research, okay? And then
Well, we see Jagai Mada, they were gatekeeper at the Vaikuntha. So really they don't have the sweetness aspect of God. But when they came as Jagai Madai, Joy Vijay came as Jagai Madai, they relished.
yeah, well,
Bhaktivinoda Thakur made that point.
yeah, that's true. And I would say to that, there's so many verses that Mahaprabhu's coming to the world is kind of made untrue. Don't preach to the ignorant, don't bother them. Mahaprabhu's, oh no, give them the holy name. So many things, you have to do A, B, and C to be. So that's true. When we go to that realm, everything changes. But, Prabhupada did say, it's the modes of nature covering you, so you can't understand Krishna. And I see kind of like Yoga Maya is kind of like the sunglasses, protection, we're going to use Yoga Maya to create an illusion for the pure devotees and create an illusion for those who are not pure devotees, because you both need to be an illusion, and you both want to be an illusion, but you want to be an illusion in different ways. Like Prabhupada's talking about the scientist. Complete illusion. Bhaktisiddhanta said, for the theist, he sees God everywhere. For the atheist, he sees God nowhere. And so why do they see God nowhere? Because they don't want to see him. Okay, Krishna will hide, right? Krishna hid in the heart of, who was it? Muchukunda? Who was it? Or was it Kamsa? He hid in the heart and said, he won't find me there. Who was it? Hiranyakashipu. Was it? That's not. He was running.
He traveled all over the world, he could not find.
Yeah. Hiranyaksha.
Yeah. I have a question on this sloka.
This one.
It looks like Mother Kunti. I'm trying to understand Mother Kunti. Knowing that Draupadi's 5 sons got killed, Subhadra's son got killed, and Krishna is the ultimate sanctioner. Nothing is happening. Yet they never accuse. And Prabhupada made one point that Krishna spent a little more time with his sister because knowing that she knows, she is a Yogamaya, and she knows Krishna is the ultimate. Even the Yogamaya may be a director, but not ultimate hierarchy in a Krishna has to sanction. Because he says, Upadrashta Anumanta, it is I who permits in 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So, at what stage can I or a devotee can come to a point that where only glorify and appreciate, even though I'm going through suffering, I went through suffering, but I'm
There's
trying to put that.
the other, maybe last week I was listening to a lecture. One line Prabhupada said answers this question. For everyone, forever, for all time. Prabhupada said something more or less, we should know that whatever happens to us is for our benefit. We should know that whatever happens to us is for our benefit. That it's helping us become Krishna conscious. We should know that. That whatever, you may think Krishna's doing this to me, or Maya's doing this to me, whatever, however you think it, Prabhupada said, whatever is happening to you, if you're a devotee, you should think, this is happening for my benefit. And that resolves it. And the way I've visualized that is you go through some suffering, and let's say you couldn't understand how this is for my benefit. You just suffered on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, every way. Thinking, how is this is not for my benefit? I'm suffering. And then you finally go back to Krishna and you say, Krishna, you said everything is for my benefit. I could not understand how this is for my benefit. It was suffering, so many people suffered. What would Krishna say? Krishna would say something like, if I didn't put you through that, you wouldn't be here now. Something like that. Right?
Yes.
So everything is for my benefit. And that thought has always helped me, because when I'm in those situations, I think, I may not understand exactly, but I know when I get back to Godhead, Krishna's going to say, yeah, you probably wouldn't be here if I didn't put you through that. And then we also understand that Krishna is the supreme controller. So he's in charge of the reactions. So he can create reactions that are beyond our karma. He can let us experience our karmic reactions or anything in between. If it's going to help us, then he'll do it. And I always feel like when that suffering is there, I always think, there's some impurity in me and I need this, and Krishna's putting me through this. And if I didn't have that impurity, I wouldn't have to go through that suffering. So suffering to me is always connected with an impurity. Why am I suffering? Something has to be purified. Krishna's doing it, he knows what has to be purified. And we all know, the mercy of Krishna comes if I'm ever tempted to do something that would be bad for me, and Krishna stops me and creates some suffering, we immediately understand, oh Krishna, thank you, you intervened. You brought sobriety to me because I had become intoxicated by thinking I could enjoy something and you created suffering for me. Then we know right away, isn't it? It's like obvious. Sometimes it's not so obvious. And the other thing is, which I think is important for devotees to understand, is that a lot of times we think, oh, Krishna's created this suffering so that there must be some reason, this and that. But sometimes we create it. Didn't we? It's not like this is divinely arranged. Was this divinely arranged? No, I wasn't paying attention and I slipped on a banana peel and, if I was a little more careful, I wouldn't have. So sometimes, as Prabhupada said, don't blame Maya or Krishna on your stupidity. So we have to see that also. I think sometimes we do something stupid and think, oh, Krishna must want me to suffer. No, you did something stupid, that's why you're suffering. Or you did something wrong. So we have to see it that way, and I think that way it's more obvious. Okay, I did something wrong, there's a reaction, I should learn from this. But some devotees have the tendency to blame all suffering on Krishna. Well, he's the Supreme, so he's creating all the suffering. It must, I don't understand why is he doing this to me. Well, maybe you're doing it to yourself. Maybe it's a reaction for what you did or said. That also has to be taken into consideration.
If Mother Kunti knew that due to exploration of the mantra she got from Durvasa, that Karna will be the cause of all this problem, probably she would never do it. But then after experience whole thing, at the end, everybody is dead, including Karna, then you say, okay, but still she is appreciating. But my question is, if she knew before, she probably would not even invoke the sun god. But why Krishna?
Yeah.
So my question would be, in that case, if does Krishna knows what we are just going through, or he also experienced what we go through?
He knows, and he knows what we want, and he knows what we want to choose, and he also knows what he needs in his Leela to teach us. And he always finds people who are volunteers for the Leela who will do what he needs. There's one place where Prabhupada said Arjuna and Kunti never go back to the spiritual world. They're eternally in Krishna's Leela on this planet. Did you know that? So
in this planet?
Oh, not this
or
planet.
Rotating?
In the material universe. I'm sorry. They never go. They stay in the material universe. So obviously, she's doing what Krishna wants her to do, and he's making it happen. What you say may be true, but it's not what Krishna wanted. And
are you trying to say they enjoy those suffering? Or why would you?
Yeah, of course. Because it's in Krishna's Leela. So it's Anandamaya Rasa. They can't suffer. But you may know this purport. I forget where it is. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that the devotees are more compassionate than Krishna, because devotees come and take on a material body, so they know what suffering is, and Krishna doesn't know what suffering is. You've read that before? Rajiva Goswami. So that's also interesting consideration. Like when Prabhupada was asked, is Arjuna in Yoga Maya or Mahamaya? And Prabhupada said, well, he was in Mahamaya, but it's pretty much the same as Yoga Maya, because he was in Mahamaya by the desire of Yoga Maya. So was Arjuna, was he really lamenting? Yeah, he was, by the influence of Yoga Maya. But Krishna's the director. He wants to put Arjuna. So Arjuna was suffering, but then how can you suffer in the presence of Krishna? So it's all Leela. And because it's Leela, it has its own nature.
It looks like what Arjuna was experiencing through, did Krishna ever experience just like Arjuna? Then he would know exactly what trauma he went through. Just curious, I'm not against Krishna.
Well, look at, Krishna was trying to experience Radha's bhav and he couldn't. So according to that commentary, he knows, obviously he knows, but that actual experience of course he can experience it, but according to that commentary, he's not experiencing it to the way we experience it. then you could argue. But Mahaprabhu has so much compassion, he's the most compassionate.
But Krishna does say in Bhagavad Gita, he is in the heart along with the living entities, so he does experience what?
Well, he says he knows, but doesn't say he experiences.
No, I think it specifically says he...
Chaitya.
No, he says that, Prabhupada Govinda Prabhu can quote that verse, but he says that they're torturing, torturing...
Their austerities are torturing the super soul.
Yeah, and the super soul. Yeah.
That doesn't mean, I mean, I had my son when my jewelry store got robbed. He was a baby. I was emotionally devastated, but my son was not. He was with me. I mean, he was on my lap. So I don't agree with on my experience level. What I was mentally disturbed because I got robbed. But my son, I was making him comfortable feeling. I have no idea whether he understood anything what I was going through.
Well, now we're trying to understand Krishna on a very deep level. The common sense answer would be, of course, Krishna understands everything and feels what everyone's feeling and knows. And that's the common sense answer. And I think that purport maybe was contextual to the preaching mission, that the devotees have this special connection with suffering. They can really feel it. They can really empathize. Like Krishna says, you can feel the suffering because you've suffered. And when you see another person suffering and you've suffered, you feel it. The poor people are more compassionate because they've suffered. That was that must have been the context of that purport, and that's true. And if you study it, poor people are more compassionate because they've suffered so much, and it's hard for them to see the suffering of another because they've experienced it. So, this is an interesting discussion, but it's 9 o'clock. And
Haridas Thakur was beaten, then Lord Chaitanya.
took that. But was he actually suffering? And could Lord Chaitanya, does Lord Chaitanya have the capacity to suffer the way we suffer? Being, yeah, it's a different kind of suffering. Yeah. So we'll leave all these thoughts floating in the air, and you can spend the rest of your life thinking about them. And that way, instead of thinking about all the problems in the world, we can. I was just one last thought. I was doing some research because I was, I have a recording studio, and some things had broken, and I had to replace them, and we're doing a new project, and I was doing some research, and I was thinking about all the things I have to do. And then sometimes when I'm chanting Gayatri, I'm so absorbed in thinking about that, I start thinking, I go, wait a minute, I have to stop thinking. And I just saw how easily, the mind's like a sponge, and you give it thoughts, it can just get absorbed. So these kinds of discussions and questions are really good because the mind has a nature to get absorbed. So you keep asking, how is this? But if this happened, this, and this shloka this, and this appears different. We can go on eternally just contemplating. And so even if we don't come up with this Siddhanta per se, we'll get closer and closer to it, discuss it more, and it gives an opportunity for the mind to get absorbed. And that's why I like asking questions sometimes that seem to have two answers, because it lets us. Otherwise, we're going to get absorbed in what? Coronavirus, Trump, too hot, whatever. Isn't it? I want to say one more thing, which is interesting. Achana means covered. And there's so many things in our books about us being covered, our knowledge being covered by lust, avritam jnana, covered. So many places, so many shlokas were covered. And when we read the word covered, it's actually a very nice word because it just means that we're pure and we're just covered. It doesn't mean like we're sick in the sense, like you're sick and I don't know if I can ever cure you. It just means there's a cover, I just have to take it off, and you're not sick. You never were sick. You're always healthy, you're just covered. And a lot of devotees feel like, no, I'm sick and I'll never be healthy. I'll never be Krishna conscious. No, there's no question of never being. You are. It's just covered. So we're in the process of uncovering, which is the right way to think about it, not like I'm sick and I'll never be healthy, which is how devotees often feel it emotionally. Maybe not philosophically, but emotionally they often feel that way. No, it's just covered. Three modes of nature. You're just covered. As you uncover your Krishna, what is bhava? What is the next level from where you're at? What's your next level? Nishta or ruchi? What is just less covering? More bhav, less maya. Next level, more bhav, because you're letting it in. You're letting the light in, right? Every level you go up, you're letting a little more bhava in because there's less covering, more shining through, right? It's there. And then when you reach bhava, then you can celebrate.
One point.
You're good. Yes.
This is very nice. This is like a contagious subject. You are like a very dynamic. I really like your way of thinking.
Thank you.
But I was thinking like, okay, if I'm suffering because of the covering, but who am I? The conscious, at the core of my existence, I am a conscious being.
Yes.
So feeling, emotion is not something whisked away. It is there eternally.
Yes.
So the feeler is real. Maybe the subject that I am suffering, it has an illusion, means it doesn't have eternal existence. But I cannot deny the feeling and the feeler. So it is real in one sense, at the same time it's not real because the subject I'm focusing on, the material conditioning covering.
Yeah, it's true. And I would like to put the cherry on the cake. When you go back to Godhead, His whole material existence, when you're there, will be like you just nodded out for a second, you woke up. That's what it's going to be like.
Sounds good. Yeah, I heard
the whole
that.
thing is like, people, are we going to remember it? It's going to be just like you were chanting and you fell asleep for one half mantra and you woke up and there you are. So all of this suffering and everything, it's nice to see it in that way. It reduces the intensity and size of it. And suffering is also a perception, because you may suffer. You need to say, my wife left me, and someone who has a bad marriage is thinking, I wish my wife would leave me. That he would perceive that as happiness. And someone else perceive it as suffering. So it's like, and it's the same experience. So.
Mother, there is a comment, Mother
Okay.
Ragatrika, let's see if I can get. Can you repeat this is from Mahatma Das and Espinol. Can you repeat in which verse are you reading, please? They already said.
1:18:19. 1:8:19.
Okay. And then, Mother, let's see, all good. Srila Prabhupada criticized misplaced faith in sensual perception, but then how best to consider Srila Prabhupada dedicating his first book, Easy Journey to Scientists of World, with blessings from Bhakti Siddhanta. So these are just a comment. Let me see.
Yes.
Another comment is, so many comments. Oh, I lost it. Yes, I agree. This is an awesome class. Okay. A lot of information, awesome questions. Mahamaya versus Yogamaya, my theory. The material world is full of Mahamaya, the spiritual world is full of Yogamaya. Okay.
It's so interesting that Yoga Maya can confuse you in the material world to become an enemy of Krishna. Interesting. Different functions. One energy, different functions. Okay, we should stop. Thank you very much.
It was very nice for us.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Thai Go Premanandi, Hare Hare.